Hello and welcome to Movie Buffs, a show that covers the best action films of all time. I'm your host, Shani B. You can find me on all the socials at It's Me, Shani B.
And I'm Cisco from Misfit Minded. You can follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok at Misfit_Minded or Twitter at Rampage_Misfit and my website at misfitminded.com.
Today, we're talking about the 1993 dark comedy True Romance, starring Christian Slater and Patricia Arquette, directed by Tony Scott and written by the one and only Quentin Tarantino. If you haven't seen it, it's the story of a lonely pop culture nerd who marries a call girl, and after deciding to steal her pimp's cocaine, they run off to Hollywood to start a new life together. Um, it is an amazing premise, and I gotta know what you thought. This was a blind spot for me, so I'm so excited to hear what you think of this movie and your relationship to it.
Oh, I think you have to go first since you're the blind spot. Yeah.
Uh-oh, uh-oh. Alright, okay. Alright. For me, this movie was so random. I don't know what I
Damn.
expected, but I guess I just had the wrong expectation, like, I think it was so wild to be able to, like, hear Quentin Tarantino's unique style, but not feel like Tony Scott, like, got it enough to I don't know, executed or something, like, it felt I don't know, it felt really strange, the score I'm always out here on those score tips, and I don't know, it felt, like, really disjointed to me, and I'm sad about that because I really wanted to like it, but
Yeah.
I don't know, I guess I'm so curious about, like, what read is the one that everyone else prefers to see, 'cause I think I also have no relationship to this movie. I
Mhm.
straight up confused it with Natural Born Killers for, like, I don't know, 30 years, right? That's how long
Yeah.
ago this movie came out. So I don't have a relationship to it, and the fact that it's Tony Scott is, like, so wild. Just pieces of his art are here, but then pieces of Quentin Tarantino's art are here, and then the actors are all like, every actor ever is in this
Yeah.
movie, and they're all
Exactly.
so good.
Yep.
Which is why this movie, I can't say it's good or bad. I can only use the term random, if that makes sense.
No,
What about you?
I'm bummed that it didn't hit harder for you. I don't know. I think, like I said, I'm on here that the one director that everyone loves that's just not for me is Tony Scott. So I'm not gonna like
I'm with you.
fight you that like he's like my guy and that every movie he does is amazing and that this is just another one of those. But I will say, and I told you this when we agreed on this. This is my favorite one, and I think that still holds up. On rewatch, like I don't know. I think this time, what you're talking about read on it, and I think the read that I took away from it, for me, it's just like a really fun, like hangout kind of movie that like Tarantino is known for, and I think the title True Romance. What I found this time is that all the little connections that they were making with each other, like not just the central love, but like there's that scene where Michael Rappaport is going up to Christian Slater after he announces he got the part in the movie that he's auditioning for. And it's like the most random thing, and he's like, I gotta tell you something, and you feel like it's gonna be this like heartfelt moment because these guys have known each other their whole lives, and he goes, never mind, I'll tell you later. And it's just like it's like there's like all these like really heartfelt beats in it that like I'm just like, man, like they just feel so lived in the
Mm,
character, and I just like hanging out with them and like revisiting them. And I will say the reason that Natural Born Killers and this feels so similar is because Tarantino wrote both of them.
that's right,
So
okay. I
yeah,
knew there had to be some reason I was mixing them.
and so and from what I was like researching, I guess they kind of were like the same story, but just like so long, and like it would have been a TV show basically of material, like a season of like it just it
Okay.
the idea like spun out of control, and what ended up happening is they split it off into one with the ideas of the Runaway Killers became Natural Born Killers,
Okay.
and then the other half that split became True Romance, which was like the more like fairy tale,
Version.
aspect to it, which Tony Scott brought from like the special features. I have the Arrow uh box I just bought right here. It's really nice.
Sick. Sick.
Um but that's what Tony Scott brought to it because and that's I think that's what I like about it too is that this isn't the dialogue is definitely like Tarantino-esque, but like
Mhm.
all that like fairy tale romance stuff, I don't think Tarantino has that. Like the meet cute, you know what I mean? Like is
I
like
mean,
it's so funny and ridiculous though, but like to me it works for me because it's like a comic book. Where
yeah,
it's like this guy meets this girl that does not exist. That's like
yeah.
a call girl that like falls in love with him right
So
immediately, and she's like the
sweetheart.
hottest girl ever, and she's a sweetheart, and she loves kung fu movies, and it's like the most random checklist that you will never find on this planet. But like I don't know, somehow it's played so earnestly, and
It's
now,
interesting.
I guess nowadays, like everything is played for the joke and just you can't take anything too seriously for too long. You have to like let audiences know, like just in case they're not buying it, like, just kidding. And
Well,
like
there
so,
th
to have this be so earnest and like I really root for the main characters, Alabama and what's his name? I can't remember. He has like
Clarence.
Clarence, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely do obviously face, like, some serious dark danger too, which I did think was kind of cool, and I guess, like, that was it, was, like, something about how when Tarantino has people falling in love, the way they fall in love still can feel fairy tale like to me and dreamlike. It's just also surreal. And this is a more grounded, like, if ever there was going to be this pair, this is as grounded as we're going to try to tell this story.
Mhm.
And I guess it's just so interesting in retrospect to be like, yeah, there is this like kind of fairy tale that happens, and then when the real world comes back in, that score that like feels really hippy dippy and very rom-com-y.
I'm with you on the score. I think that's one thing that doesn't really work for me
I
because
feel
of
like as
that.
we're talking about it though, I see the benefit of how that score represents the, like, really sweet
Yeah.
delusion
That's what
between
it's
these
going
2
for.
people.
That's what it's going
Yeah,
for, and I mean, Val Kilmer as Elvis, like, come
dude.
on, dude.
I did not see that coming. I
It's
thought that I was
wasn't he
hoping for,
amazing,
like
though? Wasn't he
yes.
amazing? Yes, like,
He's always fucking
God.
amazing, dude, every time.
I love the choice too to, like, make him like, you don't ever see him as Elvis, though. Like, he's just
No.
in the background, and he's basically, like, the main character's, like, I don't know, hype man, like, "You're so cool,
Yes.
man. You're killing it out here."
Yes,
And I just
yes.
love that, like, that because this is like, Elvis is his idol, and, that he comes up several times in the movie, like, I love at the beginning, the conversation in the bar, like,
Yeah,
I'm not gay or anything, but
but
if
if
I
you
had to
was
fuck one guy,
I
it'd
mean,
be
he looks
Elvis.
kind of like a woman,
Yeah,
he's got a good argument, and then he does name his son Elvis in the
Elvis,
end,
I
so
know. And
it's
you know what
true.
else too, why I think Tony Scott was the right choice for this? The Tarantino ending, it's on the box set. I and so the Tarantino ending of it, was the only thing that him and Tony Scott fought about.
Ooh,
And Tarantino's basically it's a darker ending.
okay,
And so
well,
and
that sounds right.
Exactly. And Tarantino was like, "Man, come on, like, don't do the hippy dippy, like, happy ending, like, Hollywood bullshit ending." And Tony Scott was like, "Okay, I'll shoot both of them, but I'm telling you, like, the ending that you wrote is not my movie. Like, because like, when we were talking about the fairy tale aspect of it, like,
Yeah,
that's not something that was in Tarantino's script necessarily, like, as hard, like,
no way.
and so he shot both endings and like they're both on there and like the one that we got is like way better. Like it's so much better. And like so basically the alternate ending to they she's driving away and Clarence dies.
Okay.
He doesn't survive. And so
Oh,
and so she's driving away and she's like kind of contemplating and like she's like narrating it too and thinking back about everything that's happening and she's like almost kills herself, like thinks about killing herself, and then she's like, all this was for nothing, and basically like hitchhikes and is like not like, and basically like she's starting over by herself with the money still, I guess. But like it was like a bummer ending, and it was just like it did not fit what we got with like the eye patch and Elvis and in Mexico just chilling by the beach. And yeah, Tony Scott basically said that to him. He's like, these characters, I the way that you wrote them and the way that I approach them, like I'm rooting for them, and I think the
Yeah.
audience will want to see them make it out. And I think he's 100% right. Every time I watch this, I'm like, kind of forget what happens at the end, and I'm just like, oh god, I hope they survive. Like, you know,
That is what makes this movie kind of fun and
yeah,
why the push and pull between a kind of director like Tony Scott and a kind of writer-director like Quentin Tarantino is such a cool combo. Because I do feel like Tarantino maybe misses that because he gets so excited about some other detail, but
hmm
the lived-in characters he provided Tony Scott and then how Tony Scott could kind of elevate them into, living out their own fantasies via the filmmaking was kind of cool because I was thinking like, I just watched a surreal movie. Is this actually like an absurd story that
Oh,
like, and
like
that's
I said,
why?
it's like a comic book. Like, that's how I read it because it's like everywhere they go, it's like a hurricane of shit that just, like, around them, like a tornado of shit that just, like, happens, and they're just, like,
Yes,
so in love, and I'm just like, that type of balance is, like, something you could only get from, like, a guy like Tony Scott and Tarantino, and,
yes.
like, the most fucked up love story with blood squibs all around, like
I mean, yes, yes,
torture,
it's like a bender,
racism. You got the Tarantino
dude.
racism.
Classic racism, always here, always.
Dude, okay, the
Um,
Christopher Walken scene, honestly, one of the most terrifying scenes in, like, all of cinema.
He's so good in
He is
this.
so
He's
scary.
so good in this. It's kind of amazing that we get to see all of these actors who Tarantino will tap again, basically, after seeing them deliver his lines when he wasn't the director. Because I was
Yeah.
like, "Shit, Brad Pitt is here for, like, 2 seconds,
Oh
Christopher
my
Walken,
god, Brad
who's
Pitt,
gonna do"
one of the
y
I think the best stoner in a movie,
all
like,
time, all
so
time.
so convincing. So I feel like so many times I watch someone being a stoner in a movie, and they're just like it's like playing drunk. It's like they're overdoing it. It's
Yep,
like
selling
not
it.
yeah, they're not selling it right, and it's like, dude, Brad Pitt, like, was just again, he was like the opposite. It was like he's staying in this house,
He's
and
chilling.
he like people are just gonna walk in and out like gangbangers, and he doesn't even know that he almost got killed. Like he's
No.
just so
That's the best part of this movie is
I
that,
know.
like, in the end, because he's just, like, totally
He's
honest and doesn't get involved
dude,
too
I
much,
love he
good to go.
invites he invites Gandolfini. He's like, "Hey man, you want to sit down and watch some TV with me?"
It's so
I fucking
awesome.
love it. And then Gandolfini's like, "No, I'm alright, thank you though."
Dude, and Gandolfini was, like, fucking next level, dude. The psychopathic, portrayal that was so
The
gnarly.
walk-in scene next to Gandolfini, 2 terrifying sequences, and I think that's what I like about this too. It's like there's just scenes in it that I just like ever since the first time I saw them, I'm like they're ingrained in my brain. Like the walk-in scene in the trailer, the
Yes.
interrogation, and the Gandolfini like torture, like, and that was one scene that I remember watching Gandolfini's like inside the actor studio
Ooh,
when he was on there, and that was one scene that, like, they talked about, and he said, like, that scene was, like, really hard, like, on him
yeah,
like, manifest that mind state and, like, be on there, and he said, like, he needed to take, like, time after that to, like, re
I bet.
because he wasn't on this movie for so, like, that many days, you know what I mean? But it was just, like, he had to come in, be that evil monster, basic like, when he straight up says, like, he, like, rips his shirt open, and he's like, "Stick it in me, like, and stick it to daddy," or whatever. I'm like, "This guy is fucked." Like,
He's so
damn.
fucked up. Dude, Ta leave it to Tarantino to make sure that the most fucked up dudes
That you've
are in
never
these stories.
seen.
Ooh,
Yeah.
especially in the early stuff because, like, a character like his is very reflective of, like, what we're gonna get way more of in Natural Born Killers. So there's something kinda cool about how especially in his early work, there's always a he's always interested in the like different versions of psychopaths that exist. Because you have a Gandolfini, but like technically Christian Slater is a psychopath.
I
He
mean,
he goes full taxi
Gary
driver.
Oldman
Oh
as like
man, we have to talk about his black scent, dude. It's next
so
level.
good.
Oh my god,
Okay, this was in my research too when I was researching it. I guess again, because Gary Oldman, he gives 150% every time. So I guess like he uh
insane.
he took the script, went to some, I don't know, I don't want to say, but like he somebody he thought was like representative of this character and was like I think a younger kid too, and he was like, "Is this like does this sound accurate to like how you would talk?" And then like the person read it and was like, "I mean, it's cool, but like I wouldn't say it like this." And then like they gave him notes basically on like how they would say it, and he used it in the movie. He is
Classic
dude,
Oldman.
3 how do you have 3, like, all-time villains in this, like, villain scene? It's, like, so and he like, I always forget too that he's only in that one scene, but it's, like, so memorable, like,
So good.
the way they shoot that with, like, the lamp going back and forth, and he's, like, using
Angles.
it to, like, light himself and his face, and basically he's basically reading Slater like, "How gangster are you? Like, are you know what I mean? Like, are you just a
Yeah.
crazy person, or are you really about this life?" Like, he's like and so you get that the whole time, and then he's like, "You really should have sat down, because then that if you were sitting down eating the egg roll, then we could have had a conversation."
That's right. I mean, even he is such a pro that his brand of psychopath has its own flavors and notes. Like,
It's
it's
so there's
wild.
so many good actors. I mean, and then you got the Tarantino regulars like I like that Chris Penn gets to have
Let's
another
go.
Mexican standoff at the end as the cop. I like
Yes.
Samuel Jackson having another dialogue scene about like what he would do with a woman like Pulp
Yep,
Fiction.
eating it all. Totally. God, so good.
I mean, it's just and then yeah, Walken. It feels like he just wrote those. I don't know if he had Walken in mind, but it was like he gets Walken and he's like, I'm gonna write this 5 minute scene just for Walken to just destroy, like because
Oh.
he's so and I know he can handle it and he's so good. And yeah, it's
Yeah,
his
his brand of psychopath is something else, and, like, low key, that is what Dennis Hopper is kind of doing too, right? He's being like, "I'll show you another kind of
oh,
psychopath,
I
the
love how
one
Dennis
that's,
Hopper
like,
plays
hiding
that
in
scene
plain
too.
sight, but is a vicious racist." Like,
But
everybody in
I
this
kinda get the
movie.
impression too that, like, he's saying that because he knows he's gonna die. So
Yeah,
he's thinking my read of it, I guess, like, this is, me being generous,
let's
he
go.
possibly could be super racist, but my read of it is just like, what is the most offensive thing I could say to this Italian guy that, like, will make him kill me so I don't slip up and give
Suffer
him
anymore.
yeah. And so he's just, and, like, that is a stereotype, but there is a beef between Italians and black people, and he
Italians
definitely
are the worst
like
sometimes.
he like stabs at that, like, through
Mhm.
that whole scene, and like, Walken's like laughing at it, and
Yeah, I also love the mob
so
vibe of
tough
how when they're like, "Yeah, he compared Italians to
to
black
see.
folks, and so Don Vincenzo shot him."
I love the one guy that doesn't speak English because again, lived in. It's like such a small note, but it's like, yeah, it's like if you were like if there was a Mexican gang and there was a dude that only spoke Spanish, like that's realistic. Yeah,
Exactly.
they're not always gonna speak the same and talk the same. It's like it's just those little details are like what I think, sets
It's
this
true.
movie apart for me and why
It's true.
revisiting it is always a good time. And Patricia Arquette, we haven't mentioned her yet, but
Oh,
she's
yeah, of
fantastic.
course. Yeah, like, the 2 of them together, what a kind of combination I guess I never would have known could have such, like, fireworks until I saw the 2 of them kinda work with each other and bounce off of each other, and I do feel like everything is here for a reason, which is one of the reasons why, like, personally, my personal relationship to this movie is kind of whatever it is, but I do have to give it props for the fact that, like, none of the lines are wasted. None of the shots are like gratuitous in a way that doesn't capture how, like, oh shit, this is all really starting to go sideways now, or like this is all very disjointed and so close up that you can't tell what's happening. I do feel like Tony Scott is more interested in the camera being like so active that
Mhm.
capturing the actors and capturing the action is lively in a different way, and I did like that.
And I just you're not wrong, like, I don't wanna make that c like, that it is a random ass
Always
movie,
right.
but that's why I love it, though. That's what I
That's
think
what art's all about.
that's what makes it interesting is, like, the randomness of it and, like, just the scene of, like, I just think whether this is you wanna attribute this to Tarantino or Scott, I don't know, but it's just, like, even the scene where the drug deal is going like, proposal is going down and they go
Yes,
on the roller coaster, it's like, how many times have you seen that in other movies where it's, like, the most boring warehouse of, like, "Alright, so let
in a
me like,
car.
you're gonna meet my guy, and then this is we'll meet here," and it's like, no, they're gonna go on a roller coaster, and this guy gets sick on himself, and it's, like,
Yes!
hilarious, and it's just, again, so random, but I
So
love it,
good.
like, this and oh my god, that when the guy gets caught by the cops, like, the girl won't hide the coke for him, and it, like, sprays all over. This
It's
movie is
so
hilarious
good.
also, that's another thing,
Yes.
this movie is funny as hell, like,
Yeah.
I
I
was
will
cracking
say
up multiple times,
the
this
Hollywood stuff, like, the commentary on how things work in LA is also 1,000,000% correct. So there's, like, something really funny about how already this early in his career, he is able to see these, like, silly pieces of an industry that are pretty absurd that you can have such a good time with, basically. And I
uh,
do love, like, when he's calling the producer and he's like, "I
Saul
got a
Rubinek,
really good movie for you, and I wanna
yeah.
make this deal." Like, the way they talk about and obfuscate the, like, drug lingo is so fun.
So I got, Doctor Zhivago, you'll never have to produce another movie again.
Yes, that shit is, like, 4 hours long IRL.
Dude, and I love
Wow.
too that, like, again, another we're just going down the list of actors. Tom Sizemore, I thought was, like, cracking me up because, like,
Dude,
he
yes.
genuinely seemed to be, like, laughing on set. So, like, when they're listening in with the guy with the wire, and it's like whenever, Slater or, like, Rubinek or somebody would have a funny line, and they would be laughing, like, along with me, like, it just made
Yes.
it that much funnier. They're like, "I love this guy. This guy's fucking crazy."
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Like,
like,
that was
real,
yeah,
um reflective kinds of performances where again, because these are great actors, whether or not they're in the same room doing this scene together, there's real listening that's going to take place between characters, and that is part of the direction that I think like helps Tarantino's scripts like really kind of feel more like a Mammoth play where things are supposed to be bouncing even though they're bouncing from all these different vantage points. There's still like a bounce that's taking place and a rhythm, and I did think that was kind of interesting that like the chaotic nature of this and then, like, the slowdowns, I
yes.
thought were really interesting too, the,
It's
like, little
disorienting.
breaks. Mhm.
It's disorienting for sure, but it, like, never I feel like it never goes off the rails, like, everything is, like, kinda in this world, it's, like, ridiculous, but it's, like, in this world that they paint, I believe it, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Totally.
so and, like,
I mean, in
again
LA.
yeah,
There's
again,
something about how,
how
like
many movies we've seen with the cops, like, with The Wire, and they're just so intensely like, Do we have it? Do we have it? Oh my is he in danger?" But, like, these guys are fucking cracking up, rolling on the floor,
yeah,
like,
they
"This
don't give a
guy's
shit about
fucking"
this actor. Yeah.
they're just shithead cops. They're just, like, messing with this guy, like, and and so and then, again, I love at the end, the shootout, like, just how the
So
way
many
it plays
feathers.
out. Again, is it realistic that they would both survive? Probably not. But again, this is a fairy tale, and I want them both to survive. And he loses an eye. He does. They don't go unscathed.
That's
And then
right.
and she has to fight off Gandolfini. She gets fucked up. By
She gets
Gandolfini.
fucked up.
Yeah. Like, and oh man, you can see like how he would make Kill Bill later, like the amount of the beating that she takes, but then like just the animalistic, like when she finally kills him, and she's just like
Yes.
nothing but her bra and just like she's like screaming and like I'm like, damn, dude, like oh my god, like this is it's nuts. But
It's true, it's true.
Trisha
She is
Arquette
one of the
sold
whew.
it.
Yeah, her, like, visceral style of acting is, like,
I've always
unique. It's
loved her.
like
I've
oh,
always thought she was such a fantastic like anything she's in, even if the movie's not good, she is always good in it.
yes,
Like
her
she's so good.
quality. Yeah, it's so grounded, it's so organic. She reminds me a lot of, like, how Melissa Leo is, where it's like
Mm.
they're just so true to life. Their performances are so true to life that when you're watching her with Gandolfini, I was almost like, "Shit, I don't think I can, like, just sit still." I'm like, "When will this scene be over? Make
Yeah,
this
like, part
scene
of
be
you is
over."
like, you don't want her to give it up, but at the same time, part of you is like, "Man, just, like, give it up." Like,
Yeah, maybe
you're
you
gonna
should.
Yeah, like, you guys just married, like, a week ago, like, so
Are
maybe,
you
like,
sure about this?
but yeah, the way that she, like, laughs oh my god, the scene where in that Gandolfini, fight where, I think she hits him over the head with something, and then, he throws her in the shower, and it's, like, all this broken glass and everything, and she
Yes,
starts laughing at him, and she's like, "You look fucking ridiculous," and, like, he looks in the mirror to check on it's like,
the
dude,
gaslighting.
that was
Next level.
so oh my god, because it's like part of me, like, felt bad for him at in that moment, like, I was like, "This guy is so
Yes.
insecure that he's like, I do I look ridiculous? Like, I have to check on my," and it was just like, God, like, again, this movie makes me feel so many different emotions.
Well,
It's
that's what's
so
also
crazy.
amazing about even her character, that, like, in the end, she helps you also understand that sometimes you have to go a little psycho to
Oh, yeah.
survive something crazy. That, like, if she didn't laugh at him, if she didn't push him off of his, like, confidence or whatever, she might not have been able to overcome him
She bought
somehow.
herself an extra 10 seconds just by doing that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and, like, she comes off truly psychotic in that moment, but I'm like, "No, let's go, I'm here for it."
I love to so in this I was watching some of the special features and, like, usually in special features too, I noticed the costume designer are always good interviews. They're always, like, eccentric and, like, very open, and so the costume designer was talking about some of the choice because this is the fashion in this movie is, like,
It's
really,
dope.
really great. Yeah, like, she really did a good job, and she was
Mhm.
saying that, like, she was excited, but she was saying that those white, dress shoes that Gandalf I don't know, like, specifically those I don't know if they're, like, gaiters or whatever, but, like, those loafers or whatever that he's wearing, like, that it was very rare to find that in his size, like, because he has such a big shoe, and so but and he didn't wanna wear them in white either, but she said that it was important because when he gets the corkscrew through the foot that you would see the blood
That's right.
more, and same
Mhm.
thing she said the same thing with, Gary Oldman, that's why he was wearing the white, like, shorts when he gets blasted in the dick.
So good.
Again, this movie's
Woo!
insane. If you haven't seen this movie and you're listening to this, like, go see this movie.
Right now.
It is genuinely like nothing you'll ever see, and, like, I don't know what that says about me. This is one of my favorite, like, romance-ish movies, but, like, I don't know. I love it. I
It's the
can't get enough.
best. Yeah, I mean, like, ultimately, it's like, listen, there's, like, a world of people that are this wild, and
Yeah,
if you're one of them, you stand a chance of finding a soulmate. You
yeah,
could have an awesome boss that's like, "I feel so sad for this guy. I really want him to get a little nookie on his birthday. I'm just gonna send an escort service," and the rest could be history for you, like,
yeah,
arguably, Christian Slater as an incel is kind of funny, but I'm allowing
yeah.
it. I'll allow it.
I know. And you got the purple Cadillac, like, it's just all the choices they made, it's just, like, so dope. Like, the
Mhm.
Elvis glasses that he wears through the whole thing are hilarious, like,
Yes.
I just the fact that he works in a comic book store, I was getting, like, like, Kevin Smith vibes, like, '90s Kevin Smith,
Oh, yeah.
like and again, it's just like it's so surreal. There's a surreality to it where it's just like, yeah, this guy is not real. He's like feels like construction of some nerd. You like Tarantino or whatever, working in a video store and this girl doesn't exist, but like you just go with it. It's just like I said, it's like flipping a page to another comic book panel to the
It's
next
true.
crazy character, next crazy situation that they're gonna get into. So it's and yeah, I just couldn't take my eyes off the screen. Like just
I'm so
some
grateful for this kind of imagination too, that, like, it does look to have fun in the anti-hero space, but allow that to be something explored with absurdity so that it isn't like, hyper violent and also really assaultive. It's sort of hyper violent but exciting and
yeah.
trying to, like, say something about sex and violence, I feel like, and
Mhm.
that is important because sometimes that gets, like, skipped, but that is what's interesting about Tarantino. He has something to say always. And I do feel like Tony Scott plays around with different filmmaking tools, so he too has something he wants to say.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, even, like, that last shootout, the fact that, like, there's a projector playing, like, Vietnam footage, like, as they're like, projected on them as they're shooting, it's like,
Wild.
you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
that's what you get when you have, like, Tony Scott, and, like, there's some beautiful, just singular shots in that where, like, the one I'm thinking of, like, the one where she's, like, laying over his body and you think that Clarence is dead, Alabama, and she's, like, crying over his body, like, that shot is pretty crazy. There's a shot where I think it's Chris Penn is, like, hiding behind a table, and you just see, like, this one, like, beam of light, like, shooting out through, like,
Mhm.
through a bullet hole in the table, and it's just like, "Oh, man." There's
Let's
feathers just,
go.
like, flying in the air. It's just
The feathers, so
God.
good, and I do love that moment when she lays over him because that is sort of like a reminder that this is like a strange kind of Romeo and Juliet story too, right? Like 2 very naive young lovers that are,
Yeah, how old do you
willing
think
to
they're
go.
supposed to be? Maybe we should, because 'cause they're acting like straight up teenagers for
They
sure, yeah.
are. I mean, I have to think he's maybe only, like, 19 or 20, and
Yeah,
maybe the same is true for her, like, maybe she's 18, 19, but also, like, they never talk about it, and he's been at the comic book shop for, like, 4 years or something,
mhm,
so he could I guess, like, that does affect the read because 'cause you're like, "Is this a guy in his mid-20s who's, like, not getting his shit together,
yeah.
or is
Yeah, he
this,
said
like,
he's
a
been
young
working there for
man
4
who's"
years, and she's like, "That's a long time."
Yeah, because 'cause she's been, like, only a call girl for 4
Yeah,
days.
for 4 days. Oh, dude, that scene where she breaks down is so, like I said, I love her, like,
Dude,
because it's
a
just
hooker
like
with a heart of gold for life.
it's like it's such a stereotype, but the way that she plays it is, like, so heartbreaking. It's like, she genuinely likes this dude, and she's like, "Oh, well, he if he knows that my history, like, he's not gonna wanna
Yeah.
be with me," and it's like that vulnerability of even everything aside, it's like when you have a vulnerable moment with somebody and you think they're gonna judge you, it's like everyone can relate to that, like,
Yes.
so it's and
He's
and
so sweet.
yeah, so such a sweet, like, oh my god, and, like, I love the scene where, too, where, he shows up to, Dennis Hopper's house, and he's like, "Dad, I just got married," and he has to have the whole sit down with his dad, like, and, she straight up kisses him on the mouth, like, too, like
What the fuck, dude? I put that right in my questions section. I was like, "What's that about?"
Hey, okay, it was worth it, though, just for the line afterwards where he's like, "She does taste like a peach." That full on laugh out loud moment when he said that, I was like, "God, this movie,
There is something
perfection."
to how, like, almost all of the men in this movie, when they see her, are, like, entranced by her,
Yes,
like
yes, yeah,
she has that
definitely.
kind of power as well, which is, like, maybe part of what, again, makes the Gandolfini scene so crazy because, like, he has no room to treat her like anything other than in the way of his information,
Yeah.
and all the other guys, they can't help but be like, "Oh, wow, I really do see the magic that you see."
I think that's part of what I'm saying with, like, the relationship aspect of, like, the different relationships in the movie. I think part of why that exists is because of their relationship and her specifically. It's like whenever, people are maybe cynical or whatever in their own life, but then as soon as they get around them, they, like, put their guard down and they start like, "Oh,
They join.
look at these 2 lovebirds," like,
Yes.
I remember when I was like that when I was a teenager.
They're like,
And
"This is something all of us want."
yeah, exactly, like, I can't even and I think even, speaking of the Dennis Hopper scene, like, he's very, like, skeptical at the beginning, right? Like, he's not, like, welcome with open arms, but then when he sees how happy his son is, like, I love that, and like I said, that's, like, very small section of the movie, but, like, the love that he has for his son because he sees that he's happy with her, it's like, again, that's just a small relationship that you see the love there without it being like a main plot point of the movie.
Totally,
So
totally.
yeah,
And this is like a story full of, like, men who are not being shown or able to show each other love in a meaningful way. So in some sense, it's kind of cool that, like, she make helps all of these men who otherwise feel, like, very shut off, loved, like
Mhm.
Dennis Hopper is like an ex-alcoholic living alone on the train tracks, and here comes this like really sweet, loving woman who looks at him and calls him daddy and then, still makes out with him or whatever, but like still looks at him, right? Sees him. And same with Michael Rappaport, like looks at him and sees him and acknowledges him. And to the same token, he's just like another face on the audition sheet. So the feeling seen by her is an interesting piece of her character too.
And I mean, it doesn't like again, if you this is one of those like, if we're going questions and plot holes, it's like it's pointless. You know what I mean? Like because it's like, yeah, would realistically some random dude kill a pimp, get away with it, get all these drugs, and
In
then just
Florida.
immediately find somebody immediately find somebody to unload it and then ride off in the sunset. Like, no, that never happened. Like there's so many things that you could poke holes in it in that scenario, but like, it's who gives a fuck? It's
Exactly. It's one of those things where, like, at the end of the day, the all the questions and plot holes we often have are a little bit more about, like, where the rubber meets the road and the art, like, this is a fairy tale, and in a fairy tale, you can't have the same, rubric, like, when we're in a space where surrealism is allowed, I can't just watch this movie and be like, "Okay, wow, so obviously Christian Slater has antisocial personality disorder, he may even be experiencing
like, this could
schizophrenia."
even be
Like,
just like a dream that he
there's no
has.
time for that.
This could be like a
Yeah,
dream that you know what I mean? Like a
yeah,
comic book that he's writing. We don't know. You know what I mean? Like it's played like
exactly.
that.
Yeah, you have to just accept it and receive it and watch the story, you don't need to know something about it, you can just enjoy it, it's very entertaining.
It's like it reminds me of I guess this will tie in a little bit because it's from Sir Ridley Scott, Tony
Ah,
Scott's brother,
good call,
uh,
or I'm not
was
sure.
recently quoted because people were criticizing that, Joaquin Phoenix doesn't have a French accent in Napoleon, and his response was, "Get a life." And so that's how I feel. That's how
He's
I
the
feel
best.
about people that criticize like dumb shit where it's like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, House of Gucci was ridiculous with those accents, and it's like it sure was. It was also entertaining as hell and fun. Like,
Exactly. It was also a piece of art. Nobody
yeah, you
stood
know
up
what I
and was
mean?
like, "This is the historical record of the Gucci family." You
Yeah,
know, no
exactly.
one's doing that here either. But I do
Oh
feel
man.
like, like the questions that I had were more, again, just like unexpected things. I
Mhm.
didn't I guess, like, after recently watching, From Dusk Till Dawn and sort of
Oh,
seeing that character, Quentin
another
Tarantino.
Tarantino script. Yeah.
Another, like, an insane kind of story, but, like, the character he plays and, like, that guy's psyche and the way he interprets Juliette Lewis, it, like, reminded me of this same kind of, like, rich exploration of a grounded character, and so I feel like I didn't expect this movie to have that kind of elevation. I
And
just thought
I
these were crazy kids in love, and this guy is he's just misguided. He's
yeah.
not, like, also having a larger than life experience.
And I think if we're going with the like Natural Born Killers comparison, with Juliette Lewis and everything, like I think this movie is like more successful because of Tony Scott and like you needed a technician and someone that was going to like build his own surreality and world with the script. And I
Mhm.
think when it got to Natural Born Killers, it was like um what's his name? Why am I blanking on the director's name?
Did Oliver Stone direct
Yes,
it?
yes.
Okay, okay, that's what
Oliver
I couldn't
with
remember
someone like
either.
Oliver Stone, he's one of those people that doesn't rein it in. Like, he will let any idea run off the wall and
A little
wild,
wild.
and so there was there's seriality in that movie too, but it's, like, fucking all over the place. It's, like, just,
Very hard to
talking
grasp.
about disoriented. It's, like, sprawling and just, like, hard to follow, and,
Mm,
so it's that one's not one
overwhelming.
of that's not one of my, favorites to go back to, and you look at True
No.
Romance and it's like at least True Romance is like fun and has a love story at the center of it, and it's that I'm rooting for them. I'm not rooting for the fucking relationship in Natural Born Killers. Like,
No, thank you.
I'm hoping they get caught. Like, I'm hoping
Stopped
someone.
immediately, please.
Yes.
It's true. Yeah, they're interesting to kinda juxtapose with, 2 directors that have powerful kinds of visions and processes for how they execute, and the same screenwriter who is giving them the same quality to work with is interesting as, like,
Mhm.
pairing them together so far in the past now. Wild. It's wild that
I
it
know.
that this movie came out 30 years ago. Like, I think that also blows my mind to be
Oh,
like,
yeah.
"Whoa, these are actors that, like,
I
don't even
think
really
that
look like that
I
much
think
time's gone by."
I think that adds to the surreality of it too, though, for me, where it's like
Mm,
everything feels so old-timey, like, and not just in, like, it was made 30 years ago, but it's like she's smoking in the theater and,
yes.
telephone they're having sex in the telephone booth,
Yes.
which we didn't mention, but, like, holy shit, I forgot about and the sex scene too, we didn't mention too, where it's
It's so
like, bring
Top
sex
Gun
scenes back.
oriented.
It
Yes.
was very Top Gun pilled for sure. Uh, but yeah, I think this was I forgot to mention too that like I watched the director's cut on this, Arrows video thing too.
Uh-huh.
And on the 4K, and from what I understand, the only difference is like there's more blood like that they had to take out
Got
because
it.
they kept getting an NC-17,
Of
and
course. Of
he was contractually obligated to put out an R-rated movie, and so they had
course.
to keep taking out blood. But I'm sure that I mean, like I'm sure maybe they had to cut down some of the sex scene too.
For
Who
sure,
knows? But
yeah. I mean, I couldn't believe, that her little boobies snuck in there. I didn't
ooh,
see that
I
coming. I
wouldn't I
was like,
wouldn't exactly call them little. If
"Oh,
we're
yeah. Yeah, I guess little in the colloquial, sense here." But, like, when you go back and you watch an actor who you've seen do a whole bunch of stuff in, like, a period of their life where maybe you don't know if, like, they ever even did this kind of work, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Whoa, here it is,"
You
was
see
kind of
Christian Slater's
crazy.
butt, for the girls, you got
Slater's bum bum.
you get
Oh, so cute. I can't believe how little they both are, like, how
I
young they
know,
both look. It's
I
crazy,
know. Oh, man.
but
Yeah, it's
great.
I love their again, another old-timey touch, this goes with this conversation, their first date where it's like they have the pie after the movie. He's like, "You like to get pie after a movie?" He's like, "Yeah, I love to get pie after" Tarantino loves a diner, so they're eating at the diner and talking
Hands
about the
down.
movie, and, it's kind of like he gives her the Tinder profile questionnaire, like, "What are
Yes.
your turn-ons? What are your turn-offs?"
Mickey Rourke. Mickey Rourke is the turn on because he's still okay at the time. Oh, man, that
"Do
killed
you
me. I
have
was
a
like, "Ah."
fella? Do you have a fella?" Like, he's asking her all the rundown questions. She's like, "Okay."
Yeah.
I think, again, they have really good chemistry, very playful, energy together, and yeah, you don't know where it's going, when you first I'm imagining your first time experiencing it, like, you're just like, "Oh, this is a love story of these 2 these 2 lovebirds."
I wasn't sure how much of it could or could not be true just because, so much of it is a little bit of a setup, so much of it is still a mystery to me, and I can't remember right now off the dome exactly what the billboard said when they first, like, expressed that they love each other after sleeping together,
Oh,
like,
yeah, I
"Don't
can't
think
remember
about it
either.
too much," or "Don't" there
Yeah,
was something like that where I was like,
yeah.
"That's what you
It was an
do. That's what you
ironic
do."
it was an
Yes.
ironic, definitely, and I was gonna say too, I love when, the first girl that, we're talking about realistic the first girl that he tries to get to this, to the 3
To go to the movie.
movies to watch with him, and she turns him down. I'm like, "Bro, that's like" I feel uncomfortable asking a girl to see, like, 1 movie, you know what I mean?
It's
Like,
true,
and
it
you
takes
have the balls to straight up, like, "It's 3 movies," and it's like and it's an old, like, Sonny Chiba, like and
which
it's
is so
like,
boss, right?
again, which is but it's like, again, if this is a first time date type of situation, it's like, "No, dude, you don't"
The
some
bar to
old
entry.
some old martial arts movie that's 3 of them,
It's
like, that's
true.
just
You
come on,
are
bro.
not setting yourself up for success with the ladies,
Yeah. He
there.
has what the kids would call 0 riz, is what I would say.
Yes, yes. I will say some of the ways he would come on did also give me the ick occasionally, so I know there's that
Yeah.
one too. But I will say it was interesting to I guess it was interesting to see in that scene how, like, this is not a dude who lacks confidence or isn't self-assured. This is, like, a guy who so clearly feels like when he's talking to people they're not even on his level. And I
Mhm.
think if that's shot the wrong way, that makes him come off like an asshole. But I feel like instead it makes him come off as like, I'm just trying to live a life.
Well,
Where's
that's
everybody
why
else?
I think that's part of why it's easy to root for them too, because there's like a kind of a socioeconomic, aspect to it, to where it's like both like
Yeah.
she's a call girl, he's working in a comic book store, they're definitely not well off. And
Nope.
so, when they get this money, like, or, the drugs, it's like you want them to make it rich, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so like he when I was looking at like his actions in it, I was kind of like from that mentality of like he's thinking, I do not want to go back to Detroit. Like I'm in California. I want to take my wife and go to some place exotic, sipping on some drink with a umbrella in it. Like
Yes.
and
Yes.
that's what I want for my life. And they get that. And I again I love that, Tony Scott went out with that ending because, again, I didn't want the bummer ending. The bummer ending would not have worked in this movie.
And, like, the bummer ending may happen in real life sometimes, but sometimes people get away with
But that's why we
stuff, you
watch
know?
movies. That's why we watch movies. Like, I don't want the realistic bummer shit. I live that
No,
every
I'll watch a
day.
documentary if I'm
Yeah.
interested in that. Exactly,
Take me to
exactly.
somewhere like, take me to World War II history where Hitler is fucking machine gunned in the face. Like,
Yes,
that's the
that's
one
the
I
one I
wanna
want.
live in, where
That's right.
slave owners are getting blown up. Like, that's
Yes,
the one.
that's where I wanna go.
I think that's why Tarantino's, like, one of my favorites, is, like, there's just again, he's maybe it's not realistic, but I love that. I love his fantasy revenge tales or whatever, like,
Yeah.
why
Well,
not?
his ability to say just because something didn't go this way doesn't mean that there isn't a thirst for it to have or that it won't be kind of healing or reparative to imagine a scenario when it doesn't go that way. And I do think that is why people watch movies, and that's what's so great about how Quentin Tarantino is clearly an artist, but he's also an entertainer. And like
Yeah.
the line between art and entertainment is like the one that folks like you and I are always trying to straddle as we enjoy a movie, but I do feel like this is such a good example of like two powerhouses, two artists who are collaborating only in material, not necessarily with one another the way that like maybe in Grindhouse he would have with Robert Rodriguez, but it's not like
Mhm.
he's ever co-directed something
Yeah.
or produced a movie he wasn't
Its
directing
own world.
necessarily. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Huh.
You know what crazy connection I just made of, like, I guess I didn't make it, it was from Tarantino's own mouth, but, like,
Amazing.
okay, so I just watched The Social Network, 5-star
Um,
movie, excellent,
yes.
love it, still holds up, probably even better now, but there's a line in there where, Jesse Eisenberg as Zuckerberg is, snapping at the Winklevoss twins, and he's like, if you wanted to make Facebook, you would have made Facebook." Like, he snaps at them and says that, and so and there was a Tarantino interview I just saw recently that came on my feed, where he was responding to people that say he ripped off Reservoir Dogs from Infernal Affairs, which is this
Yeah,
Asian, yeah,
Hong Kong
kind
cinema, right?
Hong Kong, yeah, Hong Kong
Mhm.
action movie, and he goes, he's and he's does his explanation of it, but he straight up goes, if you wanted to make Reservoir, if someone wanted to make Reservoir Dogs, they would have made Reservoir Dogs, and I go, oh shit. He straight up did the same thing, but and he says he's like, I've admitted I saw his ending and I took that ending, but he's like, but everything around that is my own movie. And so he's like, and that's what he does, is like he has that kind of like, if we're comparing Zuckerberg, he has that genius brain of like a computer, of like, let me just input this thousands of movies that I've seen and output to my favorite shot compositions and action sequences and lighting setups, and like, and he
Well,
can
let me just
put it
be
out there.
allowed to enjoy the influences I have enjoyed, and let me be allowed to let them impact the art that I make without people, I guess, like, disregarding that as, like, a copy. Because I feel like what makes Quentin Tarantino movies so good is that it's so clear that there's an influence and not a theft, the way that, like, we'll talk about how lots of action movies use the same premise, but they're not inspired, they're just, like, taking the premise,
Yeah,
and I do feel like that's, like, a unique piece of how Quentin Tarantino works, is he's so good at, like, paying homage somehow, while also making it feel like a really original
something new. Yeah.
um, Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
he's a maestro, and watching him just sit in the writer's chair for this movie was really interesting.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Nice. All right,
Um,
well, let's, go through some of these favorites.
yeah, if we're talking stunts. Okay, this is like a I don't know if this is like my favorite one, but I just wanted to mention it. Like every time that Slater peels out of a parking lot or something,
Yes.
and it's just like so violent, like reversing, and there's always like a car almost about to hit him. And again, it's like it feels like Tyler Durden, stealing the car in the background and just like
Yes.
not giving a fuck. And like again, this could be just some imaginary world that we're living with, like because it's played like that's so unrealistic. Like you would hit a car, but it's again, it's like no care in the world. We drive the way we want to. We live the way and so
I
um
mean, I
that
love
was
it.
one. But you go first. I gotta think. I'm still thinking.
I
In the
mean,
ro
I
in the
think for
Rolodex.
me, the stunts that stand out the most are, like, the squib stunts, like, they need them in all of the sequences, and these are, like, 90 squibs that are sending, like, what appears to be a 12-ounce bottle of blood into the air every time they pop, and I was just really impressed with how, like, that kind of felt, like a painting at some points where it was like, Chris Penn's, like, making all these faces
Yeah,
while, like, all these colors pop out, or I guess all the red is popping out of him. And I do feel like squibs are a hard thing to
okay,
make not
yeah.
seem absurd. So I did kind of enjoy all the squib stuff in this movie.
Another again, I could just do this all day, but another line that made me straight up crack up again this time was when in the shootout, when Chris Penn is trying to get the guy who doesn't speak English, and he said he's like, "Get up, behind the couch, oh," like
Yeah. Yes. Classic. Classic, like, way for a cop to do it.
God,
Classic
like, such an
Tarantino vibes.
asshole, like, Jesus, like
Yeah, yeah, you can't even this guy's a psychopath, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly. And I was thinking that too, where it's we rooting like Alabama straight up kills a cop, but again, Chris Penn is
He's a piece
again
of
what you're
shit.
saying, a psychopath in his own way. He kills that unarmed dude instead of like just letting him die or he's like
Arresting him.
I need an ambulance. He's like yeah fuck you like I'll call you a hearse and shoots him. This is for Cody. And like
Exactly.
blasts him. And so then when she shoots him, you're like, I mean, yeah, he could have just not done that. She was like mourning the loss of her husband until you did that, and
Yep.
then now you're dead. Like, so yeah,
It's true, it's true, it's like
like
nobody
all of
really
our actions have
deserves.
consequences. Yeah,
Yes, yeah, no one really deserves to, like, come out of this kind of except these sweet, sweet lovers who walked into it in the first place. But I gotta say, like, the I think I toggle between Gary Oldman and, Tony Soprano. What is his damn name? Gandolfini.
yeah,
Because both of those deaths are, like, totally satisfying and also over the top. Like, just
yeah,
next level, like, squibs and blood everywhere, which I really appreciate. Um,
yeah.
was there a specific death that you're sort of like, "Oh, that kill really stands out?"
I just think the shootout in general, it's like madness, like crazy. Like I honestly had to rewind it again. And I remember doing that the first time I saw this movie too, because there's just so much happening that
Yeah,
you can't really comprehend it the first way through. Like, and so, like, even like when I was rewatching it this time, I missed when Slater got shot. And I was like, oh shit. I was like, I missed that because there's so much. So I like had to rewind it and fucking Chris Penn shoots him as he's coming out of the bathroom.
got it.
And so yeah, so it's I think that scene because Tarantino just has a knack for those like, hateful eight, everyone pa, 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 shooting each other at the end and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Yes, so
Brad
much
Pitt just
happening.
fucking everybody up and you're just like, "Whoa!" Like
Yes. Yeah,
and
like,
so
very fast, very extreme,
And
very rewarding.
the way that it presents itself too, where it's like you got this guy with the wire and he's folding like a chair, like he's just
Yep,
sweating. Everyone's
yep.
like, "What's wrong with you, bro?" And then when
How does
he
he know your
reveals
name?
yeah, and dude, the way Saul Rubinek plays that scene too of just like, "You fucking stabbed me in the heart.
You'll
Fuck
never
you."
work in this town. Yes, God, your
Dude.
turn in this business is over. So
And
good.
then just it takes that one betrayal, again, actions and consequences, that one betrayal that he goes ballistic on him, and then the cop shoots him, and then everything goes haywire, and you know what I mean? Like, and so I'd say that's like my favorite kill sequence, and then I would say for stunts, I really like the whole sequence with Gandolfini and Arquette, and
Yeah.
just like how, I mean, there's just so many, like, he's throwing her through glass and up against the mirror, and I
Lots
imagine
of
like
punching.
those stunt people had to go through probably a lot, like, ugh, like, it just, yeah, it seemed like such a gross and, like, hard scene
Guttural.
to shoot, yeah. I mean, even when he first punches her too, and he's like, just, "Ooh, you have such a cute eyes, and why don't you turn around for me?" Like, it was just, like, something bad is gonna happen, and she's, like, laughing, like,
So
she's, like,
fucked up.
giggling the whole time, and you're just
Yep.
like, "Oh, no."
So fucked up. So fucked up. But so good, right? You need
And
that
she's so
those
bad at
little
lying
characters.
too, like, when she was like, "My husband's a football player, and he has practice today."
So, I don't know
It's
what you're
just
talking about. Yeah. Everybody is doing their best
oh
to
god.
escape their circumstances, whether that is in Detroit or in LA or in these contexts, and I'm glad these cuties end up being able to overcome all of it and have a life at the end, even if it's fantastical.
Yeah. What about
Yeah.
your favorite kill? I didn't get to your favorite kill.
Definitely, gotta be probably Gary Oldman, just too
Oh,
good.
yeah.
An
Through
exploding
the
penis and
dick.
then through the
I
head,
mean,
let's
honestly,
go.
it's, what I was what made me think of is because, it's the poetic justice of the pimp getting shot in the dick, was like the
That's right.
RoboCop scene
Yes,
when the rapist,
through
like,
the legs.
yeah, when RoboCop shoots the rapist in the dick, and it's like, "Ah,
It's so
only
good.
movies can do this." Like, you know what I mean?
Yes,
Like, it just wouldn't hit the same if this was a book describing that scene. Like, you really need to see
it's
Gary
true.
Oldman fly back in the air, like, from getting
Yeah,
shot in the dick.
you do. Sometimes we need a little bit of wish fulfillment, and
Yeah,
I want it here. I'll take it
and
here.
he said, and that was just my research too. He, when asked about his favorite roles, Gary Oldman said this one and another one were his 2 favorite roles that
Cool.
he's ever done.
This is a wild
So,
one. This one is
yeah,
wild for him to
yeah.
like so much. Oh, it's so good.
Doing the
Wow,
black
wow.
scent with the dreads, he's got, like, the
The
grilling, he's got,
teeth,
like,
oh
the gold teeth,
man.
yeah.
Everything about it is wild, but I'm glad it was good to cover this blind spot. So yeah. Anything else before we wrap up?
That's all I got. I'm so glad that, you're filling in the Tarantino verse fully. It's important.
It's true. It's
Just to
true.
Kill Bill, and he doesn't have an anniversary, unfortunately, but I'm like, this one, came up, and I was like,
Yes.
this one, and you hadn't seen it, so perfect.
There we go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, cool. That wraps it up for us. Why don't you remind the people where they can find us?
Yeah, you can get your fix and follow the show at We Stay Buff on Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. Follow me on Twitter at rampage_misfit, and my movie pages at misfit_minded on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. And also my website at misfitminded.com.
Yes. And of course, take us for a ride and subscribe to the podcast on Spotify and Apple. Please leave a review. 5 stars would be the dream. And you can follow me personally on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at It's Me, Shani B. All right. Thanks again for listening. We'll hope to catch you next time for another edition of Movie Buffs. Stay buff.